Hi folks, I hope everybody's having a happy, positive day. I'm just sitting here in a temple near my condo in Chiang Mai. And I just want to talk about when I was 58 and I finally made the decision that I needed to make some changes and leave corporate life and come to Chiang Mai. I really came here not necessarily with a specific plan, but with an idea on what I wanted to do. And so I really thought about my desires, and I had three main desires in mind when I came to Chiang Mai. The first was I knew that I wanted to be here long term. Even though initially I just came for 60 days and extended that to 90, I knew that eventually I did not want to go back to the Bay Area, and so I was going to need a visa and a plan to do that. Second, I needed to ensure that I could do the coaching business from Chiang Mai and bring in a certain amount of income and revenue so that I could stay here and live comfortably. And then third, I really wanted to have a woman in my life, a partner who was around my age and somebody that I could share my life with and enjoy being in Chiang Mai. So those were the three, main desires. And as I've talked about in other videos, I'm a big fan of Dr. Joseph Murphy and Neville Goddard. And they talk about planting seeds. Like developing your desires is the same as planting a seed. When you plant a seed in the ground, you plant it, you water it, you take care of it, you don't dig it up every day, and you expect that it's going to grow into whatever it's supposed to grow into. If it's an apple seed, it'll turn into an apple tree. It was really about planting these three seeds and not necessarily figuring out how it was all going to come together or putting together a plan, but just knowing that those were my three main goals and desires. And so, the first one with the visa, funny enough, when I finally made the decision to come here in June of 2024, that's when Thailand decided to make two significant changes in visas. One is when you came into the country, instead of getting 30 days, you got 60. And then two, they came up with the idea of the Destination Thailand visa. So for me, it was not a coincidence, I think, that those two things happened. Neville talks about the bridge of incidents. Once you put desires in your mind and you feed your subconscious mind with those, and things will happen. And so I'm not saying that my desires made those things happen, but I'm saying that the timing was exactly perfect for me to do that. So second for me was the coaching, because I wasn't in a place really financially where I could just retire. So I still needed to maintain income. So I put in my mind a modest amount of money that I wanted to earn per month and for the first 2 years here. And I can honestly say that year one, I exceeded that by double. And year two, I hit that number almost on the nose. And then third was the idea of finding a woman my age and a partner. And I really just put in my mind that I wanted to do that I wanted to share with my life with somebody. What I would encourage you all to do is to grab a pen or put this into your phone or type it into your computer, whatever you could do to actually write this stuff down. But think about what are your 3 to 5 biggest desires in your life. And feel free to go big. I mean, don't just be modest in terms of what you desire. If you desire $1 million, then write that down. If you desire to have the perfect dream job that right now you don't have, then write that down. If you want to be in a relationship and get married, I would encourage you to write down just 3 to 5 manifestations and things that you want to accomplish and what your desires are, and put that in your mind. And then, as Dr. Murphy and Neville teach, it is really like planting a seed. Once you plant those ideas in your mind, right, you need to live in what they call the end state, which is not the idea that these things will happen, but that these things have already happened. And this is where a lot of people, I think, get really confused in terms of what does living in the end mean. And so let me give you my own examples and how this really changed my life in Chiang Mai. So let me start with the first thing, the visa. So when I came here, I knew that I needed to be here for a certain amount of time to be able to establish myself. So like I said, I had a 60-day visa, I extended that to 90, then I left the country and did the same thing again, but then I knew I needed a solution. So I flew back to America and I applied for this DTV visa based on my coaching business. And when I applied, to be honest, there were some hiccups along the way in the process, but I just kept telling myself every day that I already had the visa, and I imagined what it was going to be like living in Chiang Mai with this 5-year visa and not having any worries about any of that. And that's eventually what manifested. And I can tell you, normally it's a 4-week process. It got extended by 2 weeks, which I think caused me a little bit of stress and anxiety, but I just kept telling myself, especially in the last 2 weeks, it is already done. I already have the visa. And I would really close my mind and imagine what that would feel like and what it would be like. And I imagined the moment of go into the website at the end of that 6 weeks, and instead of seeing processing in Visa, I would see approved, and there would be a letter attached. And that's exactly what happened. And the office closed on the exact day of 6 weeks, which was around 5 p.m. California time. I logged into the website, and that's what I saw, approved. In terms of the coaching business, like I said, I really did just manifest a modest amount of money for me to make here. I think it was like $500 to $600 a month. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And I really had no plan on how I was going to get customers or how I was even going to build this coaching business, but the customers just came, and I was able to do resume writing, and I was able to do career coaching. And at the end of the first year, like I said, I had more than doubled what my goal was. And at the end of the second year, I had met my goal. So really for me, it was about putting these things in my mind, getting comfortable with it, living with it like it already had happened, and then I just let it go. And that's how these things manifest. Neville again calls it bridge of incidents, and things will happen if you do the same thing. Opportunities will present themselves. You have to pay attention, but things will develop in your life that allow you to achieve the manifestations that you are trying to achieve. There's a lot of videos on YouTube, and there's a lot of manifestation teachers who are going to tell you you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. Look, you don't. You need to do what works for you, and it's the same way in manifestations. Now, what I would tell you is there's 3 key things. Number 1 is identifying what your desires are. And I think it's important for me to say, don't identify what you want, because when you identify what you want, you are still putting yourself in a place of lack and a place of needing. And when you identify what you desire, you're saying, this is what I desire, and I know it's already happened. So identify what your desires are. That's number 1. Number 2, plant the seed. And plant the seed in your subconscious mind, let your intuition guide you. And then number 3, you have to have belief and you have to have faith. And so let me just take a second to explain what I mean. When I talk about belief, I mean believing that what you desire is not just possible, that it has already happened. You have to have core belief in what you're trying to do. So for me, I knew I was going to be here long term. I believed that, and I manifested the visa. I knew that I could do the coaching business here. I believed that. I manifested that too. And I knew that I wanted a long-term partner who was my age, and I manifested her as well. So belief is important. But then there's faith. And faith is another part of this. And you can look at faith as like confidence. Yes, you can have belief, but you also have to have faith that it is done. You have to know that it's already done it. And look, I know for a lot of people this is a difficult concept, because you're saying to me, Scott, if I'm trying to say I have $1 million, but then I look at my bank account and I don't have $1 million. Look, what's important is that you have the feeling and you have faith that the money is already there. When the money is going to manifest, when it is going to happen, as Neville and Dr. Murphy say, that's not your concern, right? You plant the seed. It might happen in a day, it might be a week, it might be 2 years, right? But you have to keep the belief and you have to keep the faith. Know that it's already happened. And there are 2 things that I'm going to leave you with that I think will really help with this. Number 1 is what Neville calls SATS, which is a state akin to sleep. So before you go to bed at night, right before you fall asleep, just develop a little 30-second scene that shows you that not only do you already have your desire, but that you're living in it. So don't just see your bank account with $1 million. What would you be doing with that money? How would you be living? Live that scene. And sometimes it can just be you, and it's got to be in first person, not in third person. It can be you living that life, or it can be you sitting with a family member or a friend and discussing how happy you are and how happy they are for you. So try to use SATS every night until you feel it in your soul, and then you can just let it go. And then the second thing, when you first wake up in the morning, before you do anything, before you grab your phone, before you say hello to your partner if he or she is lying next to you, imagine that 30-second scene again and seeing yourself living in the state that you are. If you do this every day, day and night, and then during the day when you have doubts, just go back to the scene. Look, nobody's perfect. Nobody lives in the state 100% of the time. But for me, the reason I was able to manifest this thing is because I stayed consistent, and eventually the bridge of incidents led, and I've been able to accomplish my desires, which is living here in Chiang Mai and having a wonderfully simple and beautiful life. So that's what I want to leave you all with. Think about for yourself, like, what are you trying to create? Feel free to leave it in the comments. But remember, the last thing, you create your own reality. Your thoughts create your reality. So do your best to control your thoughts. Make sure that your thoughts are positive and it's reinforcing what your desires are. And live in the end state. Don't live in the state of it will happen, or it's going to happen, or I hope that it happens, because that's living in a state of lack and a state of fear. And if this video had any value or you enjoyed it, feel free to hit the like button and a subscription to the channel. It costs nothing. It would really help me out, and I'd really appreciate it. Again, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Take care.